Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over the water to Denmark once again, to the island of Fyn, and we're going to revisit Indslev Bryggeri. These beers of course were very kindly sent to me by Mike and Anders from Indslev Bryggeri, and we're going to have a look at the last of the Indslev ones that they sent me. So we're having a taste of the Spelt Bock today, which is a 4-grain Weizen Bock. It's brewed with rye, barley, wheat and also spelt wheat as well, so it should be really nice. It was highly rated on Rate Beer too. I can't remember the exact number, but it was well into the 90s or the late 80s at least, so it will be a very good beer. 7% like I said, and the other beers I've tried from the Indslev range, the wheat beers, have been really nice. The Fada IPA, the stout beer as well, the Sport Fada, which was really nice. These guys produce some really awesome stuff, and the first thing you'll notice when you try these beers is just how smooth they are. I've never come across a mouthfeel like that in the wheat beers, but it really makes them quite sessionable. So if you want to try some sessionable wheat beers, I guess Indslev Bryggeri are where you want to go. And of course, Indslev Bryggeri also brew the Ugly Duck range of beers, which is their more American style of things too. So yeah, a big thank you to Mike and Anders for giving me these beers to review for you on the channel. I hope you guys have enjoyed the reviews. There's still a few more Ugly Duck ones to come, of course. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. The brewery website for both Indslev and Ugly Duck, the links to reviews from both ranges as well, and there's all the usual social media, so do follow me on there. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel, and to those of you watching in Denmark, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other Danish beers and breweries that you guys would like me to review, and do let me know your favourite Indslev and Ugly Duck beers as well. I do have a few more Ugly Duck ones to review for you, so do check those out and check out the other videos I've filmed already. So anyway, to tell you about Indslev Bryggeri. So as I've told you many times, Indslev Bryggeri are based in Nørre, Aaby, which is a little village just near Middelfart on the island of Fyn in Denmark. If you go to the island where Copenhagen is, that's Sjælland. Go to the next one to the west, and that is Fyn, and Nørre Aaby is in the northwestern part of this island. But the Indslev Bryggeri has roots that trace back to the year 1897, and they opened as a modern brewery once again in 2006, and since 2012 they've been brewing their Ugly Duck beers, which, as I told you, are the more kind of American style craft beers. But the brewery is owned by Anders Rasmussen, whose great-grandfather Frederick built the brewery building back in 1897, and both of them actually grew up on the family farm right next to the brewery. So this is a kind of family farm brewery, kind of like Aaby here in Sweden actually. But Indslev were the first modern brewery in Denmark to specialise in the brewing of wheat beer, and they remain the only brewery to actually do this in Denmark today. But as I mentioned, their desire to brew kind of different styles of beer other than the wheat beers was what led them to found the Ugly Duck Brewing Company. And like you've seen in my reviews, they've got some really awesome IPAs and double IPAs and things over in that range, so do check those out as well. But the two brewers at the brewery are Stefan Peter Stadler, who is from Munich. He graduated from the Hofbräu School, and he's worked in various German and Danish breweries too. And there's also Torben Steenholt, who is actually Danish, and he brewed previously for Velja and for Brockhaus Brewery as well. So the building has been modernised, and it now has a brew kit from Kasper Schultz in Bamberg in Germany. As I've told you many a time before, Bamberg is a bit of a holy grail when it comes to beer. My love of beer started with a visit to Bamberg and trying Schlenkerla and Spezial and all of these beers there. There's some really good beer in Bamberg, so that's somewhere that you do need to check out. So just to list a couple of the other beers you can get in the Indslev range, there's the Sort Fada, which is the black wheat. That was the last one I reviewed for you. Svane Fada, Spelt Bock, which is this guy here, Påske Fada, which is an Easter beer, Jul Fada, which is the Christmas one, the Fada IPA, which was very nice. That's a really nice session beer, that one. There's the Fida, which is the white wheat, which I would like to try actually. There's the Fada Bock. There is the Frederick's Pasta, which is another Easter beer, Mork Fada, Frederick Yule, Frokost, and there's a couple of other ones coming out as well. So just keep an eye on the brewery website and you'll see what's coming out there. They also have their Ugly Duck range beers that they've done as well. I'd recommend the Imperial Vanilla Coffee Porter. That one is really nice. Miami Vice is good as well. The Hop Devil is good, and so is the Foxy Brown. But pretty much any beer you'll try from the Ugly Duck range is pretty good. They're kind of like an old school sort of American style brewery. Like, they've got some of the original hops. They like the likes of Chinook and Simcoe and things like that. So if you like the old school American hops, then definitely try some of the Ugly Duck beers as well. But yeah, that's enough about the brewery for just now. Let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer. I'm really interested to try this one because I do enjoy a good Weizenbock. The one that really springs to mind is the Schneiderweiss. I think it's tap 7, the Weizenbock. It's a really nice beer. That's one that I really enjoyed when I reviewed it. But I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. You can see it's the typical Indslev Bryggeri artwork. All the beers just have different colours on this kind of trim and the text and things depending on which one it is. There you can see the swan, the Indslev swan, plain bottle cap on this one. It tells you a little bit about the beer in Danish on the back. It tells you a little bit just about the flavours to expect from it. And it tells you that it's a 4-grain beer as well. I had a little look at the translation of that before I actually started filming the video, but it should be a very nice beer nonetheless. And as I said, I've enjoyed the other ones that I've had from Indslev Bryggeri. So once again, thank you to Mike and Anders for sending me these beers. You can see a nice smoky opening on this one. It's kind of sad actually that this is my last Indslev one. I really need to go to Denmark and get the other ones and review them for you. I have enjoyed these wheat beers. They've been very smooth, and like I've said in a couple of the videos, I found when I lived in Germany I kind of went off the wheat beer style a little bit because they were always really quite heavy, and I found I could only drink one and then I'd be absolutely full. But recently, after drinking these Indslev ones, I've been able to go back to some of the German wheat beers and enjoy them a bit more. I don't know why. This coming and doing these beers has really kind of retuned my palate. But I guess sometimes if you're reviewing beer, you can get sick of certain styles, then you need a break, and then you go back to them and you appreciate them more. So Indslev has kind of given me that when it comes to wheat beers. But as you can see, this has poured a really nice, actually very almost ebony colour, a really dark sort of chestnutty colour. If I hold this up to the light, there is a bit of a kind of mahogany chestnut colour around the edges there. There's a frothy, kind of beigey coloured foamy head on this one. It looks really nice. Some little bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head there, but some bigger ones sticking towards the side of the glass. There is a tiny little bit of sediment floating around. I'm guessing it's at the bottom of the bottle there. There's maybe about, I don't know, maybe about 3/4 of the beer actually poured into the glass. So we'll get the rest of it out in a little bit. But as you can see, it looks very nice. The head has just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer. So let's check out the aroma of this one then. That actually smells really chocolatey. That's the first thing you're going to notice about this beer. When you let it settle down, it becomes more bready. You can pick up the rye bread elements to this one. The wheat is really obvious as well. There's a very characteristic sort of spelt wheat coming from this one. It just smells a little bit more earthy than regular wheat, if that makes sense. You can smell that. You can really smell the 4 grains in this one. The rye really comes out. A bit of the barley's there as well. But the grains start to come out when the beer settles down more. When you sugar it up a bit, it's more chocolatey. There's a little bit of caramel in there too. Maybe some kind of nutty, woody, leathery sort of note to this beer too. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting one, I have to admit that. Not quite as obvious in its characters as the other one. The other Indslev beers, you could really pick out the notes and get exactly what to expect from this beer. This one actually, it smells a bit more like it should be a stout or something like that, if I'm honest. It does smell a little bit more like a stout beer than a bock, which is quite interesting. Just the chocolatey notes and a little bit of the caramel too. But the thing that really does make it more like a wheat beer is the grainy character, the spelt wheat. So it's quite interesting in that side of things with the aroma. Maybe there is a little bit of kind of earthy and slightly kind of grassy, floral, like noble hops kind of thing going on in this beer. Just take a little bit of time and smell it for yourself. But as I'm smelling it more and more, it starts to get a little bit more sweet, more chocolatey, more caramelly, and things like that. It does smell very, very nice. So just take a little bit of time before you actually get stuck into this beer. But we'll have a taste of this now. So this one is the Spelt Bock from Indslev Bryggeri in Nørre Aaby near Middelfart on Fyn, Denmark. Skål. Now that one is good. That is a good beer. Yeah. Now that's nice. The 4 grains in there really are kind of like, they're propping up the beer. They're the ones that are forming that base across the middle of the palate. But you can get this distinctive chocolatey flavours. There's a bit of caramel in there. There's a good bit of complexity to this beer too. And the other thing you notice about it is for 7%, alcohol warmth just not there. Just not there at all. There is a little bit of dry, kind of bitter character to the malt base on this one, which is quite nice. But it's the whole part of the flavour of this beer really is in the middle of the palate. Around the edges of the palate, where the hops come out, of course, there's a little bit of earthiness. As you come further forward, it smooths out and it becomes a little bit more grassy and floral, but really the focus is on the centre of the palate with the malt flavours, which is what you'd expect from a Weizen Bock. But this really isn't like a Weizen Bock that I've had before. It's really different in its flavour makeup, and it's really different in the feel as well. Because usually when you think of a German Bock, you think of really dark caramel, you think of really dark roasted caramel, treacle flavours, a little bit of fruit, a nice bready malt base. This one, for me, is a lot more chocolatey. I always find that's one of the key things I always found with Bock beers. It's a nice caramel. A lot of people say Bock beers taste like chocolate. I don't really get that. It's more a caramel, sort of treacly flavour you'll get from those beers, in my opinion. But this one really is more kind of chocolatey. There is a little bit of almost like a black malt to it. This one is really quite bready, actually. And I would think with this, you could actually be forgiven for not thinking this one is a wheat beer either. It's not got the... for a Weizen Bock, if you compare it to a German Weizen Bock, it doesn't have the same... as far as I can tell, it doesn't seem to have the sort of bubblegummy or banana flavours that you expect of a Weiz beer, this one. The other beers did have that, you could really detect it, but it just had this distinct smoothness to it. This one, to me, you could actually mistake this beer for another style, but style isn't important. The main point is that it does have, that it tastes good, that's the main point. And this beer definitely does taste good. It's another great effort from Indslev Bryggeri. Obviously though, it's just caught me off guard a little bit, because it's not like these guys obviously are a specialist wheat beer brewery, but this one doesn't taste like any wheat beer I've had before. The other ones did, but they just kind of made the style a little bit different. But this one is kind of it's just something else, but it's very good. Yeah. So as I always say, sugar the beer around the middle of your palate, or around your palate, and just let the whole mouth adjust to this one before you dissect the flavour fully. But the malt base in this one, like I said, there's a real bready underpinning to this one. It's almost like a rye bread flavour. There's a bit of the kind of wheaty character in there too. You can pick up the distinct taste of that spelt wheat and the regular wheat. There's a tiny little bit of spicy character to this beer, which is really nice. The bready flavours in this one are really interesting, but on top of that you've got a little bit of the caramel in there. Not too much. I think this beer has a little bit of, it almost tastes like it's got a bit of black malt. If you think of a well-fired bread crust and just put a little bit of that on the middle of your palate, that's kind of what the malt base in this beer tastes like. Yeah. That is nice, definitely. There's a definite chocolatey presence to this beer as well, which is interesting. It's somewhere between dark chocolate and milk chocolate. It just kind of finds a very good border region. There could be just a little bit of a red fruity ester in this one, just behind the front curve of the tongue. But the thing that surprises me about this beer, like I say, is it doesn't really have the bubblegum or the kind of bubblegummy banana flavours that you would normally expect of a wheat beer. But that said, it's very good. It doesn't, it's not lacking in flavour at all. It's just quite unusual when you think that this is a specialist wheat beer brewery, but they've done this beer beautifully. I certainly would drink this again, make no mistake about that. We can talk about styles all day, but it doesn't really matter. The main point is that the beer tastes good, and this one does. So I would recommend that you try this. It's it's one of these things you really shouldn't categorise beer, especially when it's craft beer, because people like to experiment. But this is a really good beer, definitely. It has a little bit of a stouty character to it, but it's a bit more bready than a stout actually. I'm just trying to think, it's maybe something along the lines of a Schwarzbier, but with a bit of wheaty character in it. You can definitely pick up the Spelt and the spelt and wheaty characters in this beer. The bread base in this is really quite nice, but this is, to be honest, it's probably just a very unique beer, and all the flavours in it work very well, so that's exactly what you want. So I would recommend that you try this beer and just try and pick out all these things that I've mentioned to you. It's really kind of made me quite interested actually. I would definitely drink this beer again. I'd love to try it on tap actually and just see how it comes out. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. In the aftertaste, some of the darker roasted malts just start to linger in the middle of the palate. And it is really a nice beer this, it's nice and enjoyable. Yeah. I think you get a little bit more caramel out of this one. I was saying about the Bock beers having a lot of caramel. Once your palate adjusts to this a bit more, you can pick up some of the darker, treacly flavours in the middle of the palate too. It's very nice. I mean, as I say, there's a debate about what style exactly this beer is, I think, but the main point is that it is very, very good. So in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say this is definitely mid-bodied, maybe even pushing the full-bodied character, because it does have a really quite oily mouthfeel, this one. That suits it, of course, when it is 7%. There's a nice kind of sweetness to the middle of the palate, both from the bready side of things, particularly from the rye, and from the wheat and spelt wheat in this one. You can get that sweetness there. The chocolate comes on top, and later the caramel, but there is a little bit of kind of dry, roasted character to this one, a little bit like black malt actually, and around the edges of the palate the hops are very smooth, but there is just a little bit of dryness, like I said. But the main point is, this is a very good beer, and I would recommend that you check this one out simply because of how unique it is. As I said, you don't have, as far as I can tell, you don't have the same banana-y kind of the sort of banana bubblegummy flavours that you normally expect from a Weizen beer, but it is very good nonetheless. And as I've said before, all the beers you're going to get from Indslev Bryggeri are pretty damn good. I'd recommend the Fada IPA if you want a nice sessionable wheat beer particularly, but this has been another very good beer. So I hope you've enjoyed the review. So as always, do let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Always interested to hear from you guys. Let me know what your favourite beers from this brewery are, of course, and maybe if I haven't reviewed them already, I can have a look at those too. But thank you again for watching. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out the social media as well. Your support there would be much appreciated, but most importantly, go and check out Indslev Bryggeri and have a look at the Spelt Bock, a very, very unique beer that, as I say, it's not quite like any Weizen Bock that I've had before, so it's definitely worth checking out because one, it's good, and two, it's quite unique, so do go and check it out for yourself. Slanger just now, and I will catch you soon. Go and check out Indslev from Denmark, really good brewery, and the Ugly Duck beers are pretty awesome too. Cheers just now, and I'll catch you later.